Alright, welcome to statistics. We're going to be starting up and going through everything, starting with Chapter 1, Section 1, which is about case studies. So, let's get started. First, let's say we want to propose a question. So, I propose a question that does the use of stents reduce the risk of a stroke? Now, basically what a stroke is, it's a bursting of a vessel. And so you see in this image, you can see when a vessel kind of gets clogged, that's where you can get backed up and you can get a stroke from it. Basically what a stent does is it goes in and spreads it out, widening it so you don't get a stent. So and my question is, does that reduce the risk of a stroke? Question would be, how would you want to test this? I mean, there's not really any way you could do it without actually testing it on people. And when you actually test it on something or someone or an animal, that's called your case study. Okay, so a case study is where you're actually proposing a question and then finding a solution with an actual experiment. So, case study needs two different groups. It needs your treatment group and your controlled group. Now, your treatment group is the patients that would receive, in this case, the stent and then regular medical treatment. So they're the ones that are being treated with whatever it is you want to test. So if it's a new medicine or vaccine or anything like that, the treatment group are the ones that are getting that medicine. Okay. Your control group are the ones that would be treated normally, so without the new experiment. So in this case, this would be the people that would get normal medical treatment but no stent put in. Okay, so that's your control. So the control is the one that's, if we don't do anything, if we just do normal work, what happens to them? And your treatment group is to see what happens if we do this. Okay, so here's the results that you have from this study. So you see the treatment group, again, the ones with the stents. 33 had a stroke within the first month. 191 did not have any event. The control group, only 13 had a stroke, and 214 had no event. And then you get your totals. And then for the entire year, you've got 45 had a stroke in the treatment group, 28 in the controlled group, and then you have your numbers. Okay, so based on this data, are we able to propose a solution? Do stents prevent strokes? And so there's several different ways that we're going to be looking at this going through. So one is a single number that can explain it, and that's your summary statistic. These numbers could be your mean, mode, a proportion, a p-value, which we'll get into later, some single number that says this is why it is. That's your summary statistic. Okay, so what's the proportion of patients in the treatment group that had no stroke within the first 30 days? So what proportion or what percent of the patients in the treatment group had no stroke after the first 30 days, or within the first 30 days? So you go back here, you go, okay, who did not have a stroke? That would be 191 people divided by how many total people were in the treatment group, which would be 191 plus 33. And so you do that and you get 85%. Okay, so you've got 85% as your number. Now, if you look and you do the percent for the other one, for the people that were in the non-treated group, they also have, they actually have a higher percent of people that did not have a stroke. So, does the use of stents reduce the risk of strokes? So the data tells us what? So the data tells us what we want it to tell us, because you can interpret the data different ways. Okay, and the main thing is your explanation of how you got that answer. Okay, so if we look at it, a larger proportion of people in the treated group suffered from stroke. So we could easily say that somebody that did not have a stent is less likely to have a stroke. But you can take it the other way, and you can say that if you have a stent, you're more likely to survive because it's a long-term fix. So remember, the people that have just had a stent have just had surgery, and so that first 30 days is kind of where they're at risk of suffering more. But if you look afterwards, so after that 30 days, if you take the numbers after that, the rest of the year, there's actually a higher percentage of people in the treatment group that did not have a stroke once they've gotten past that kind of warning time. Okay, so you can take this and you can take them different ways. You can either look at, okay, looking at this, more people had a stroke, but all those were kind of front loaded because they had just had surgery. Okay. So now the key question with statistics, what we're looking at is there a real difference in the data? So we saw there is a difference, obviously. Almost anything you do, you're going to have a difference. But the problem is there going to be a real difference between them? Okay. If I shoot from 1 foot away from the basket and then I shoot from 3 feet away from the basket, I'm probably not going to make the exact same number if I shoot it a million times. But is there going to be a significant difference so that it can be justified? Thinking of flipping a coin 100 times. If you flip a coin 100 times, you should average about 50 heads and 50 tails. But if you flip a coin 100 times, you're not going to get that. You're going to get somewhere on either side of it. Okay, so we have to identify, is there a real difference in it? Just be careful. Just because the data shows you what you want as an answer or an answer doesn't mean it's always true. So the data might say if you don't have a stint, you're more likely to survive, not have a stroke. That doesn't mean that everybody that doesn't have a stint doesn't survive. Those that have a stint, that need a stint, might be more sick. They're more likely to have a stroke. So just one piece of data is not going to be able to tell you everything about it. You're going to need more, a well-rounded look at the answer. Okay. All right, so that's our first section. Here's your homework. It's out of the textbook that is available online, and you're doing pages 1 and 2. Now, what's the ending? Oh,